I found myself flying through a star-filled realm.
It's a glimmer of heaven, many say.
It's rapture. It's beyond description.
I just felt absolutely ecstatic.
Transformative, miraculous, even magical.
What happens during these experiences?
Well, people who come close to death for any reason typically describe a sensation of being profoundly peaceful and comfortable. Some of them describe a tunnel and a bright, warm, welcoming light.
I knew instantly I was in the presence of my Creator.
It changed me as a person.
This life is not all there is.
We have this sort of conventional wisdom that it's sort of a binary thing. One moment you're here, the next moment you're not. And I think scientifically we know that's not true. Death is very much a process. Things happen in the body, things happen at all different levels of the body. The good news is that really at so many points...
Ellen Dye is a professional writer who didn't quite learn the lessons of life until she discovered death.
There really is more to who we as human beings are.
She made her life-changing discovery on a drive to the supermarket 30 years ago. Another motorist veered into her path, sending Ellen Dye crashing.
I felt no impact whatsoever. I felt nothing.
Ellen Dye was viewing her own crash scene from a distance. It was an out-of-body experience that sounded all too familiar.
The tunnel of light showed up. You can see this bright, bright light. But the most important part is that you can feel it. I almost immediately saw all of my relatives who had passed.
Now to a very personal story from our ABC family about what it's really like to be close to dying and come back. ABC's Bob Woodruff is bringing us that hour 10, and of course this is rooted in your own experience.
It is, it's hard to believe, George. It's been 5.5 years now since I was hit when we were along that road in Iraq. When I was knocked out, what I saw is my body floating below me when I was out for about a minute. Got out, came back, when I woke up about 36 days later, and I told my brothers and my wife exactly what I saw, going into this light, painless, comfortable. And so we wanted to go out and talk to some others that had the same kinds of images. And Mary Jo Rapini, for example, she was sick, she came back, and she saw something that was actually very similar to what I saw. While lifting weights at the gym, she was just completing her workout when she felt a pop in the back of her neck. A blood vessel in her brain had suddenly burst.
All of a sudden I couldn't see. I started getting black fill my eyes, except for 2 holes out of the sides of my eyes, and it sounded like I was underwater.
Surgery to stop the bleeding was immediate. Yet it was during the recovery that she believes she left this world for another.
I was terrified to die, but after I submitted to God and said, your will be done, I had such peace with it.
Speaking to Mary Jo reminded me of my own out-of-body experience. Were you ever above your body, or did you see yourself at all in any of this?
Well, when I was going up, I knew my body was back there, like I caught a glimpse of it. I was in that light, and I came to this beautiful area. It's not human, so it's difficult to express it humanly, but the room was beautiful.
Mary Jo Rapini hasn't always been so quick to talk about her near-death experience. For years, she worked as a nurse with dying patients who claimed to have encountered the afterlife. You have said that those patients that you were there with who said they too had now seen heaven or God or the tunnel, and you turned your back on them.
Had I seen them now, those patients who were telling me they were seeing angels, I would have embraced that and said, really? Let's talk about it. Tell me. I wasn't afraid at all.
Yeah, I saw mine. That's really pretty much as far as I got.
Were you attached to it?
Attached to it?
Yeah, did you feel attached to it?
No, I felt like I'd become a stranger. I think I had, I don't know. I thought either I'd gone into a dream, or there was something firing around my head, or I was somehow on a trip. For Mary Jo, her experience
was real.
I had such a sense of knowingness there. Everything so much made sense. I dropped any judgment. I was so open. And, you know, unlike a dream that is never clear, this was so clear.
Boy, she is so convinced
She is,
now.
yeah.
And it's fascinating to actually watch her interview you as well. Your story is rather similar. As you encountered other stories in producing this hour, how typical is this experience?
Well, I think with those kinds of details, very similar. The ones about, you know, the light, the tunnel.
Here in Seattle, Washington, there is one man of science who believes he's found evidence that it's a glimpse of something beyond our existence.
I interviewed a 6-year-old boy who goes, we resuscitated him, and he opens his eyes and he very dramatically says, "That was weird. You guys just sucked me back into my body."
Dr. Melvin Morse is a well-respected pediatrician, a skeptic, he says, until he was confronted with a story he couldn't explain away.
She was what you would call clinically dead. She was underwater for 19 minutes.
After the 7-year-old girl was resuscitated, she started drawing pictures.
What she described to me was not a hallucination. It was a blow-by-blow, accurate description of her own resuscitation, but from a bird's-eye point of view.
Dr. Morse says the child believed she had to go back to her body to help her mother with her unborn brother. She drew him with a big red heart. Several months later, her brother was born with heart disease.
How can dying comatose patients perceive anything? And that's what fascinated me. I knew that something important about human consciousness was to be learned.
Dr. Morse has recorded interviews with dozens of children like this who've experienced near death.
I was floating in the air and then going through a huge needle.
As one of the few experts in this field of study, Dr. Morse finds children's experiences are the most pure. Dr. Morse says it's clear even when people are flatlining in the last moments of life, something profound is happening, something today's monitors can't pick up.
The fact is that when we die conscious and awake.
Whatever happened to dying in your sleep? Wait, what do you...
Patients who die in their sleep
are conscious and
awake? Are conscious and awake in the last few minutes of life.
It is a mystery of the ages, what we see before we die, and then what is on the other side. Some doctors admit they don't like to talk about end-of-life experiences for fear they might be ridiculed, but we found one doctor who wanted to share all that she has seen and heard on her last day of work before retiring.
For more than 20 years, Dr. Melanie Oblender has walked the halls of hope, treating patients with cancer and other life-threatening illnesses.
How's her appetite?
Trying at least to ease their pain. She says each cross on the wall tells a story, a gift from the family who leaves this tribute to the one they have lost. Dozens of crosses are buried into the walls of this palliative care unit at Covenant, and each brings an end-of-life experience that Dr. Oblender says has changed her life, especially the children who have passed.
They would tell me things like they had seen something in their room. Well, at first I was just like, all right, who came into your room in the middle of the night?
Dr. Oblender admits she began this career with the DNA of a doctor, but she has seen too much to ignore.
This one girl told me 2 men came into her room and she said they were up high on the wall.
Some people might think it's delirium, but the difference, according to hospice experts, is the clear-headed narrative that comes when patients explain an end-of-life experience.
She told them, no, I'm not ready. And they just kind of bowed and nodded and left.
And there was another little girl with just a short time to live who told Dr. Oblender about someone who came into her room.
And this little girl looked at me and she said, Jesus came and sat with me. People see amazing things. Angels, a man in the room dressed in a robe.
Dr. Melanie Oblender says the kids are convincing, but she has heard just as many stories from adults at the end of life.
You'll see them reach and try to pull whoever is up there to them.
Some of you may know that in the last 13 months I've lost both my parents. I remember seeing my dad in bed reaching just like that for someone or something. And then later, Mom on 2 different occasions told me Ellis came to see me this morning. Ellis was her brother, but he had died a few months earlier.
So why is it that over and over and over and over again we hear these stories about some man coming to your room and giving you peace, or your mother or your brothers on the other side beckoning you over?
Dr. Oblender says she would not have had an answer to that early in her career, but she does now.
There is a God, I'm positive. And now I realize that God doesn't inflict cancer. He didn't blow up the Twin Towers. He was the one that was there to say, come on, I've got you. And I thank the kids for that, because they taught it to me.